I've never really been able to get into the dinosaur craze. These prehistoric reptiles in general have always just felt like a been there, seen it kind of thing for me. I don't know, something about them just screams old. Well, that's probably because they are. But besides that, the very topic of dinosaurs has always bored me, especially in my younger years. Other than Jim Henson's Dinosaurs TV show, I've never been interested in dino media. The common consensus among the public is that men have always enjoyed dinosaurs, from our infancy to our adult life. Maybe I was just built different, but I could care less about dino nuggies. If the Jurassic Park movies couldn't sell me on the idea of dinosaurs being cool, then I just might be a lost cause for that genre. Is that a chick on the cover?
You're not gonna believe this. He was attacked by some kind of dinosaur. This isn't a joke, you idiot. We were just attacked by a big-ass lizard.
Dino Crisis has been one of those titles that I've really wanted to play based off the cover and not much else. In fact, knowing that it was a horror game made me want to only own it and never play it. As time went on though, I slowly built my way up to horror games. While still not anywhere near my favorite genre, I can appreciate some titles in it. It would only have been a matter of time until I gave this game a try. The version I purchased was for GOG. I don't actually mind buying certain games physically, but one bad experience can make you prefer digital, which is fine because I had already begun pushing for digital games personally on my GOG account. I'll talk more about this version towards the end of the video, but for now, let's look at the cover for the game. Something about the American box art screams cool to me. The logo for the game looks fantastically creepy or formidable. If you try looking for this re-release, however, you'll be greeted with the Japanese variation. This one is not bad, but I much prefer what we got in the States. Weirdly enough, it's also the title screen no matter what region you own. As mentioned before, the chick on the cover looks interesting and eye-catching. The red makes the game pop out at you, especially with the mute metal plating in the back. The claw markings is the cherry on top as it allows for your imagination to run with complete suspense. It tells you all you need to know without telling you anything, if that makes sense. The visuals of video game cover art seems to be a lost art these days, so seeing the creativity here is really neat. I'm also a sucker for those late 90s, early Y2K 3D models or rendering. I know I'm spending a bit too much time on the box art of the game, but truthfully, it is the one thing I really knew about this game. I barely remember seeing any clips for it, and I've never actually sought out gameplay or playthroughs. So this cover is the only experience I have. Or had. This wouldn't be much of a video if I didn't eventually get my hands on it. Also, if you noticed in my thumbnail, Regina is holding a gun that doesn't even appear in this game. That goes to show how much I really knew about this series. Sometimes I draw my thumbnails weeks in advance of a video, so I can see that it burned me here in terms of accuracy. Now, despite the way I framed my exposure to this title, I didn't see this game's cover and immediately thought, attractive woman on cover, must play. No, I had seen still images of the game as well as fan art over the years, so I have an idea of what this character on the front is all about. After playing it, my hunch was more or less right. She's a female lead in the same vein as Ripley from Alien or Sarah Connor from Terminator, somewhere around that ballpark. I was kinda surprised with how sassy she is out the gate. I mean, this is her reaction to seeing a dead body for the first time in game.
That's disgusting.
The voice actor for Regina is pretty solid. I found her delivery to be entertaining as well as thoroughly engaging. That really shouldn't be commended these days, but back then, English voiceovers, from a Japanese studio especially, was a difficult transition, notably with Capcom. Resident Evil 1 had hit or miss dialogue along with mixed dialogue delivery. Another Capcom voiced title released around this time period was Mega Man X4. This game was severely in need of voice training as those deliveries completely missed their mark. They are so infamous nowadays that they have gained some charm over the years amongst fans, including myself.
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What am I fighting for?
With Dino Crisis coming out 2 years after the aforementioned, it would have seemed the Capcom curse was lifted.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
Right. Well, anyway, The voice acting for this game is pretty good. Rick at the start seemed a bit new to voice acting, but he got better as the game went along, I think. Some of the script can come off as a little cheesy or cliche, but it doesn't hinder the experience. Overall, it proved that it had the ability to keep me invested to the degree of titles like Metal Gear Solid.
Precisely. And that is what I have done.
Uh-huh. And how many people were sacrificed before you made this discovery?
Who cares? The numbers are quite irrelevant. Let's just say that there were many. Extraordinary deaths for ordinary men, don't you think?
Spoken like a true devil.
A god or a devil? I don't care about that. Only my experiment.
Dino Crisis is regularly compared to Resident Evil. While this isn't inherently wrong, I think it does this game a bit of an injustice. I went into this thinking that it would be an RE clone, just swap the zombies with dinosaurs. That was my first mistake. The dinosaurs in this game are the exact opposite of zombies. They are fast, track the player across the globe, and doors are something they can overcome. This adjustment in enemy behavior changes the entire game from just a Resident Evil clone by itself. It made the game different enough that Capcom themselves described the game as panic horror, as opposed to RE survival horror. The main difference is with survival horror, it is slow paced, giving you time to think even if there are multiple enemies on screen at once. You have to be strategic and survive the encounter. Panic horror is like eating at Taco Bell. Once your stomach starts doing flips, your objective becomes clear. Dino Crisis is exactly that. Once you encounter an enemy in this game, you don't have time to think. And if you don't have ammo, your butt will be clenched as you dash for the next door. These dinos are just fast enough to catch up to you with little gap to breathe. If you get stuck on a wall or object, they will most likely strike. Most of the horror aspect comes from outrunning these mounds of muscle and sharp teeth. Even your offensive options will have you in panic mode as you start to hear the empty clicks of your firearm with a raptor staring deep into your soul. These moments weren't frequent for me, but when they happened, it made me panic to the menu for any options to save me. The dinosaurs are much faster than you, smarter than any average zombie, and a lot more resilient to damage. Finding one in a corridor is nerve-wracking. What I enjoy about this game is that it takes a genre and does something completely unique with it. Dino Crisis strays away from the beaten path of zombies or possessed creepy things and finds its own ways to scare the player. This category is far too saturated with the same ideas to the point it becomes mind-numbing. So, using something even more prehistoric than zombies was a breath of fresh air. The reasoning for these creatures appearing in this story is pretty interesting too. Moving on to gameplay, there is a lot to talk about. Firstly, the control scheme uses the tank controls seen in most 3D titles on the PS1. For new players, this may seem daunting or even frustrating at first. The way it works is simple once you get the hang of it. Up on the D-pad represents forward no matter where Regina is facing. Down will always make her walk backwards, while left and right make her turn in those directions. The turning can be slow, so if you want to do a quick 180, R2 or right bumper does just that. The rest of the controls can be found in the button mapping menu before you start the game. As for the way this game plays, well, it definitely shares some genes with RE. Basically anything that looks like it can be interacted with, you should walk up to and click. It's kind of like a point-and-click adventure. Sometimes you'll find useful items, while other times there's lore or other useful information to complete puzzles. I really didn't want to be negative, but the puzzles might be the deciding factor of whether or not you'll enjoy this game. As someone who severely dislikes a brain squeeze, I can tell you that this game is pretty cryptic. Not in the fun kind of way either. There's a reason why players call this title names such as Puzzle Crisis. This isn't an action game, it's a puzzle one. There's nothing wrong with that, though the way they were executed isn't great. The main example I can give is the DDK key cards. Certain doors require 2 separate cards in order to access them. Once obtained, you then have to now figure out a puzzle. The first one is simple enough, but progressively gets harder for each door. The method to solve one door gets changed from the next. This is just one of the many repeating puzzles. Some can be fun, but others felt like a chore, especially when repeated across the entire game. I've heard some say this is a thinking man's game, but I completely disagree. The game tells you how to beat its own puzzles. You just have to remember those notes or files scattered around the game. I just used my phone and took a picture of anything that seemed important. This, coupled with the fact that the mapping positions and camera angles being weird, makes for a confusing time. It's hard enough to remember a sequence of numbers, but now you have to remember how to navigate this maze. Backtracking is this title's forte. Let's talk a little bit about this GOG version compared to the original release. Once you start the game, you can notice Operation Wipeout as a game mode. This was only obtainable via beating the game under 5 hours on the PlayStation version. If you go to start a new game, you are greeted with 2 difficulty options. From my understanding, both of these are considered normal, with hard mode being unlocked by beating either of the 2. Original is the Japanese version, in which they give you 30 continues, while arranged mode is the American version, which gives you 5. Both versions also have slightly changed item placements as well as different key codes for specific areas. I ended up playing the Japanese version. After you've selected your settings, you are then able to use a variety of costumes for Regina. These were of course unlockables on the console release, however the original PC port had these unlocked straight away. It seems GOG wanted to stay faithful to the original PC release, and so they left them available out the gate. While I wanted to use one of them, it felt dirty to not go with the intended costume for my first playthrough. As I see it, this re-release is a polished version of the OG PC port. From what I can tell, the only real modification this port has is the frame rate being bumped to a tolerable 30 or 60 FPS. Despite some of my negative experiences during my playthrough, it was easier for me to look fondly of it after it was over. As said before, I did want to be done with it midway through, but after beating the game, I was left wanting more. Obviously, I'm not saying I wanted more of what I didn't like. I just wanted more of the idea of Dino Crisis, more of what did work. This might sound a little crazy, however, I found this game to be far more interesting than Resident Evil, which I should also restate that the 2 franchises play nothing alike. The only thing they really share in common at their core is the genre they live in. And that's what I mean. I feel that Dino Crisis does a much better job at fear and unease than Resident Evil does. Of course, that is my own opinion, but I'll be sticking with it. The overall atmosphere of this game is fantastic to me. The complete sterilness of this high-tech facility breathes its own impression of unease. This, coupled with the ravaged sections of each area, can make the player feel a sense of urgency as well. Another reason why I like this game a whole bunch is the fact that it can create horror without the obsessive use of nasty gore. Games like Resident Evil and the like lean into disturbing the player via being gross and off-putting through body horror. This game does have its fair share of gore, but it uses it sparingly as the real sense of danger comes from the dinosaurs you encounter. As we come to a close, you may have noticed I barely mentioned the main attraction being the T-Rex, as well as the plot of the game. This is because I really want others who haven't played it to give it a shot. The game is semi-short, with both the plot and T-Rex not being shown a whole bunch. All in all, I enjoyed having experienced this unique game, and I already bought the sequel that's also on GOG. If anything, this game has made a new fan out of me, and I can't wait to get in line with the rest of its fans who have been waiting for its return ever since. With that being said, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.